Okay, we're recording now.
Okay, my name is Bob McGlynn, and I'm here to. The date, first of all, is May 19th, 2013. I'm here at Stephen Burgess's house. We're recording this little video to kind of relate to how things were when I was growing up, for my generation, how things were when we were growing up. And we'll probably also try to touch on maybe two generations before me, being my grandparents and my great grandparents, and my parents. There'll be three generations. We can also touch on things like the next generation, being Stephen's generation, and then of course his children. So they maybe a total of 5 or 6 generations that we're going to talk about briefly. But first, let me tell you where I came from and where I started off and how things were and my first memories. Okay, I'm one of 8 children. My parents um, were both born in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, and I was one of 8 children, and I was a fourth boy. My mother had 4 boys, 4 girls, and later on in the video, I like to take and kind of allude back to some of the problems my mother had when she had her children and she lost so many children during her lifetime. And it's always hard for a parent to lose one child, and she lost 3. Okay, and the first child she lost was my brother Pat was born in 1930, and then in 1932 I had a brother James, Jimmy. He was born and he died 5 months old from a bowel obstruction. That's what they called it back then in the 30s. And so my mother lost one of her second born. And then she had my brother Jack and then me. And then she had 4 girls. Well, later in life, uh, my brother Jack passed away in 1955. He was just about to turn 21 years old. I was about to turn 19. He passed away due to an auto accident. And then 8 years later, my sister Sharon passed away from melanoma. Very short-term affliction. When you get melanoma, pretty much the game was over right there. That's what happened to her. So here my mother lost 3 children.
How old was she?
18 years old. And just didn't quite get to graduation. She's going to graduate in June, and she passed away in February. But anyways, getting back to our generations, that's my mother and my father, and that's where I came from, at my generation. Looking back at my parents, like I said, they were born in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. Their parents, look on my father's side first. My paternal grandparents, Patrick and McGlynn and Katie Owens, they were both born in Pennsylvania. Now, pretty much all my relatives are born in the same area, and it's called Carbondale, Pennsylvania. It's in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre portion of eastern Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, probably an hour from Philadelphia. Well, let's say my grandparents were born in Carbondale area. My grandfather, Patrick McGlynn, his parents came from Ireland, okay? And like most Irish that were settled in the Pennsylvania area in the mid-1800s, they came from Ireland to get to either having been through the potato famine or just after the potato famine. So my paternal great-grandparents, they survived the potato famine, and things have a tendency to be real slow to rebound after something as major as that. I mean, that affected the entire country. It caused a lot of problems between the Irish and the English because the English were controlling Ireland at the time. And to substitute the loss of potatoes, they introduced the soybeans as a market, and that didn't work too well. So basically, the Irish, they immigrated to this country and to Australia. So most of the people you talk about in that era, whether it be my maternal or my paternal, grandparents and great grandparents. They all basically came from Ireland, England, or in that area. And in order to get here from Ireland, you had to go to England to get here because they usually um, they left out of Liverpool, England, to get to either Philadelphia or to New York City. And so if you were living in Ireland and wanted to immigrate to the country, you had to go across from Ireland to a little island called Island of Man, and then you take a ferry from there over to, to Liverpool. And of course, you're in transit for days and days and days, and then you catch a boat and you're on the water for 30 days or so. So a lot of people died in that transaction. Okay, basically that's my paternal side. My maternal side, my grandparents, my mother's people, they're Middletons, and there's Middletons and Escotts. So they came from England and Ireland also. So that takes care of like talking about my ancestors, my grandparents, my great grandparents, and where they came from and what those things are all about. So you can imagine what they were going through when they come to this country. And there's a great influx of Irish to this country during that time, in the early to mid, even to the late 1800s. And it wasn't easy to find work for the Irish people because they were looked down upon. In the New York area alone, say, the unions wouldn't hire Irish people. So the Irish were left out there to live on the streets, homeless, and drinking. When they got money, they drank and they drank. I mean, that's all there was to do. And it caused a stigma of the Irish people, a bunch of drunks. Those who did go to work, they landed in the little coal mine towns like Carbondale, Pennsylvania. And if I look back at my history and my ancestors, look at these census reports going back to 1840, 1850, 1870, 1880, 1900. Everything I see, 90% of it is just coal miners. Might be a rare exception. Might be one of the girls. Might be a nurse, or housekeepers, or maids. So they pretty much had the bottom line jobs. It wasn't until like the 1900s where they started getting into nursing schools and things like that. But it seemed like they fall into a category back in that time in Carbondale, well, probably all of Pennsylvania and all of New York that time where the Irish were involved, where they would be working the coal mines, and they started at sometimes 12 years old. And they work in the coal mines from 2 shifts, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, then go work the night shift. And they wouldn't see daylight. If you're working day shift, you go and work early in the morning, it was dark. Work 10 hours, 12 hours in the mines, you come out and it's dark. So you go to bed, get up, it's still dark. You won't see daylight until Sunday morning. So what do you do on Sunday? They drank. And I remember my first, I moved out of Pennsylvania, by the way. Our family left Pennsylvania in 1940, late 1940, early 1941, just before the war broke out, the Second World War, Pearl Harbor. I remember hearing the President Roosevelt talking about the attack on Pearl Harbor on the radio live.
So you were how old at that age?
I was 6 years old.
6.
And his remark, this day will go on in infamy. And I heard that broadcast the first time, right, live. But we moved to Russell, Massachusetts, and a lot of people tried to get away from Carbondale and Carbondale type towns. I mean, that's the whole eastern part of Pennsylvania is scattered with these little towns, coal mining towns, just typically, it's just a way of life. I mean, that's what they were, generations. They worked coal mines. So my parents, they immigrated to Massachusetts. Paper mills, textile mills, that's what was working there. And my only memories I have of Carbondale, Pennsylvania, before we moved in 1940 or 41, would be going across. Well, in the wintertime was terrible. we would the men would work in the coal mines, and they would be gathering coal, and they'd be processed. And we lived across the street from one of the coal mines where the entrance was for trucks to go in and hauling the truck out by truckloads. And sometimes they would take the trucks and be an old bumpy road coming out of the coal mine onto the main street. And the truck would be bumped around, and some of the coal would fall off on the side of the roads. So, we're being a very poor family. We couldn't afford a lot. I mean, so in order to get heat for the house, you'd go over and we go over with a little bucket and go along the side of the driveway and pick up the coal without the trucks. And the foremen from the yards, they watch for you, and they caught you. I mean, they give you a swift kick in the butt, send you. I mean, I don't care if you're 6 years old or 5 years old, they just haul up and kick you and send you sprawling. And but sometimes you got lucky. You got a bucket of coal, you run home with it, and that's how you heated your house. But then other parts of that would be. My dad would be. He had the disease, of alcohol problems, and this is back in the 30s when I was born in 35. This is prohibition was over by then, I guess. I got to take a break there for a second. Can you stop?
Yeah,
for a
let's
second? I got water in my eyes. I'm